You spent real money at the nursery this spring, planted carefully, watered consistently, and by June your garden looked exactly right. Then December arrives, bare dirt. The money is gone, not because you did anything wrong, but because nobody told you those plants were never coming back. That's the trap. Buy, plant, admire for 3 months, start over, every single spring. There's a completely different way to garden. Plant the right species once and they do the rest, dropping seeds each fall, filling new spots each spring, multiplying without a cent spent. Today I'm giving you 15 of them. Plants with real science behind them, centuries of history and beauty that stops people mid-sidewalk. Let's get into it. Plant 1, Lychnis coronaria rose campion. Stand in front of this plant on a July morning, and you'll think something is wrong with your eyes. The flowers are a hot magenta crimson, so saturated they almost look painted on, but the leaves beneath them are soft silver gray, felted like velvet. That contrast isn't accidental. It's one of the most visually striking combinations in the entire plant kingdom, and it's been doing it in European gardens since the 16th century. The genus name Lychnis comes from the Greek word for lamp, because medieval Europeans cut the fine woolly leaves and used them as candle wicks. This plant literally lit people's homes for hundreds of years before it ended up in your garden. Plant one today, leave half the spent flowers on the stem this fall, and next year you won't have one plant. You'll have 20. Seeds scatter into pavement cracks, between stepping stones, in spots you never planned. Each one worth $6 to $8 at the nursery, yours for free, indefinitely. The instinct to fight, don't deadhead everything. It feels tidy. It destroys next year's free plants. Leave at least half the seed head standing. That's compound interest no bank can match. Zones 310 full sun to part shade, poor to average soil. Dry preferred 24-36 in tall blooms June. July, deer, resistant, drought tolerant. Plant 2, Agastache hummingbird mint. Picture a still August morning. You step onto the porch with your coffee and a hummingbird materializes 2 feet away, hovering, dipping its beak into a bright orange flower, then vanishing in a fraction of a second. You didn't plan that. You just planted Agastache. The tubular flowers are shaped by millions of years of parallel evolution to fit one beak exactly. And those orange and red varieties. Hummingbirds detect those wavelengths from far greater distances than purple or blue. If you want more hummingbirds, the single most effective decision you can make is choosing the right color before you leave the nursery. Native Americans across the Southwest brewed Agastache leaves into medicinal tea for thousands of years before Europeans arrived on this continent. The fresh flowers are edible, a mild anise mint flavor, not bitter, which means you're growing a kitchen herb in your flower bed without trying. It self-seeds directly where it grows. In spring, look for tiny seedlings rising around the mother plant like little blades of grass. Don't weed them out. The instinct to fight. Don't cut the stems back in fall. The hollow stems insulate the crown through winter cold. Cut in fall and you risk killing the plant outright. Wait for early spring buds, then cut. Zones 5-9 full sun, well-drained soil, 24-48 in tall blooms July to frost, deer resistant, best varieties. Blue Fortune, Blue Boa. Plant 3, Verbena bonariensis, tall verbena. This plant does something no other plant can. It stands 5 feet tall and you can see straight through it. The stems are thin as wire. The tiny purple flowers cluster at the tips. Plant it in front of something and the view behind it stays completely open. It adds height and depth without blocking a single inch. This is a technique used by the best show garden designers in the world, and your local nursery will never explain it. Tall, transparent plants belong in the front of the border, not the back. The tiny seeds are aerodynamically gifted, drifting on the breeze and germinating in wall cracks, between pavers, in corners you never considered. Next year you'll find seedlings in spots that look like a designer placed them, but nature did all the deciding. And in September, when millions of monarch butterflies begin moving south, Verbena bonariensis becomes one of the most critical refueling stops along their migration route. Every flower is a rest stop, on a journey that spans a continent. The instinct to fight, planted in the front of the border. Every instinct says tall things go in the back. This plant is the exception. The transparency is the entire point. Zones 7-11 perennial. Zones 5-6 self-seeds as annual full sun. 3-5 FT tall blooms June to frost monarch magnet. Plant 4 verbascum mullein. In year 1, it sits on the ground as a flat rosette of gray-green felted leaves, IM. Possibly soft like suede. Most people pull it out thinking it's a strange weed. That is the single most expensive mistake in this list, because in year 2, from that exact same spot, a tower of yellow or purple flowers rises up to 10 feet like a giant candle in the middle of the garden. Neighbors stop their cars. People ask what it is, and you grew it for free. Roman soldiers dipped the thick resinous leaves in animal fat to make torches for nighttime marches. Native Americans pressed the soft leaves inside snow boots as insulation against winter cold. A plant with that long a history of serving humans definitely knows how to take care of itself. One mature plant produces up to 240,000 seeds, and those seeds can lie dormant in the soil and remain viable for decades. Plant it once and it plants itself forever. The instinct to fight. Find the worst soil in your garden, gravel, poor, dry, and plant verbascum there. Rich soil produces soft stems that collapse. Poor soil gives you the 10-foot architectural columns you're after. Check local invasive regulations before planting wild verbascum thapsus. Safer varieties include V. phoeniceum, purple mullein, and V. bomiciferum arctic summer. Zones 3-9 full sun poor. Well-drained soil 24 and 10 FT, depending on variety, blooms June, September. Plant 5 Astrantia major, masterwort. Why has this plant been in continuous cultivation in English and French gardens since the 1500s, yet most American gardeners have never heard the name? The answer is marketing. Astrantia doesn't have the mass-market visual punch to earn a shelf at the big box nursery. You have to look closer. Each flower is a small domed hemisphere of stamens surrounded by a ring of papery star-pointed bracts, like a jewel box designed by a goldsmith rather than grown in dirt. Pick one up, turn it in your fingers, and no one believes it's real. When the bloom fades, those papery bracts hold their shape for months, making dried flowers more beautiful than anything sold in a store. The name comes from the Greek astron, star, because the ancient Greeks looked at those radiating bracts and saw the night sky. English gardeners use this plant as a staple the way Americans use black-eyed Susan. You just haven't been told about it yet. Let the flowers seed naturally, and it fills in around itself year after year. Deadhead and it gives a second flush in late summer. The choice is entirely yours. The instinct to fight. Don't bury it at the back of the border. The beauty only reveals itself up close. Plant it right beside the path where people walk within 2 feet of it. Best varieties: ruby wedding, deep ruby red, Roma, soft pink, longest bloom season in the genus. Zones 4-9 part shade to morning sun moist, rich, organic soil 1836 in tall blooms June, August. Plant 6 Dicentra eximia, fringed bleeding heart. When most people hear bleeding heart, they picture Lamprocapnos spectabilis, the spring showstopper that puts on 3 weeks of drama and then completely disappears, leaving an empty hole in the border from June through March. Dicentra eximia is an entirely different species. It blooms from April through October, 7 consecutive months. While your neighbor's garden goes empty in August, yours still has color from the same plant in the same spot without doing anything extra. The foliage alone earns its place deeply cut, silvery green, soft as cotton, forming low mounds that are beautiful even between flower flushes. It self-seeds moderately each year, expanding gradually around the mother plant, never explosively, never invasively. And the condition it performs best in is the one every gardener dreads: deep shade under tree canopies, the north-facing fence, the corner where everything else refuses to grow. That's not a limitation. That's the plant's home address. The instinct to fight. Don't avoid the deep shade spots. Seek them out specifically for this plant. 7 months of color from the darkest corner of the garden, that's the trade. Zones 3-9 part shade to full shade, moist, rich, organic soil 12-18 in tall blooms April, October, native to eastern U.S. Plant 7, Amsonia hubrichta, Arkansas blue star. In spring, clusters of tiny pale blue flowers open at the stem tips like fragments of mist. In summer, the fine needle-like foliage creates a lush green cloud of texture unlike anything else in the border. Then October happens, and if you've never grown Amsonia, you are completely unprepared for what comes next. The entire plant ignites into pure saturated gold. Not pale yellow, not golden orange. Pure, concentrated gold, the color of sunlight compressed into solid form. Mature clumps have stopped traffic. People photograph them not knowing what plant they're looking at. It won Perennial Plant of the Year in 2011, voted by over 1,200 professional American horticulturists, and more than 9 out of 10 home gardeners have never seen it at a nursery. That gap between professional recognition and public availability is exactly your advantage. Amsonia hubrichta was discovered in 1942 by amateur Arkansas naturalist Leslie Hubricht, but was misclassified for decades. The correct species name wasn't formally recognized until botanists finally looked carefully. A species that had existed for thousands of years, hidden in plain sight. The instinct to fight, don't fertilize, don't add compost, don't improve the soil. Rich soil makes the plant open up and flop. Too little sun washes out the fall color completely. Full sun, average soil, no amendments, those are the conditions that give you the gold orb in October. Zones 4-9 full sun average. Well-drained soil, 24-36 in tall spring blooms plus unmatched fall color, self-seeds moderately. Plant 8 Dictamnus albus, gas plant. The name sounds like something on a utility bill. The reality is unlike anything else in horticulture. On a hot, windless July evening, Dictamnus albus releases a volatile oil, specifically a compound called isoprene, that accumulates as a faint cloud around the flower stalks and seed pods. Bring a lit match near the base of a stem on a still night, and a brief blue flame flashes for less than a second, then vanishes. The plant is completely unharmed. This is documented in peer-reviewed botanical literature. The daughter of Carl Linnaeus himself is recorded as having demonstrated it in the 18th century. The volatile isoprene is thought to protect the plant from summer heat stress, the same mechanism that makes flash ignition possible. Some botanists have proposed that Dictamnus is the burning bush of Exodus 3:2, the bush that burned but was not consumed. That remains unverified, but the chemistry is not. You can test it yourself on a July evening. One warning you cannot skip. The oils can cause skin reactions similar to mild burns on contact with sunlight. Always wear gloves. This is also precisely why deer and rabbits never touch it. The instinct to fight. Don't remove it in the first 2 or 3 years when it seems to be doing nothing. It's building a taproot so deep that once established, Dictamnus lives 50 to 100 years in a single spot without ever needing to be moved or divided. Plant it once, literally once in a lifetime. Collect seeds by tying fabric bags over the pods before they ripen and explode. Zones 3-8 full sun, min 6 HRS. Well-drained soil, 24-36 in tall blooms May, June absolutely deer-resistant var. Albus white, var. Purpureous pink-purple with dark veins. Plant 9 Pulmonaria lungwort. It blooms in February while snow is still on the ground and the flowers change color as you watch. The buds open pink. They turn purple midlife. By the time they fade, they've gone full cobalt blue. A single cluster can show all 3 colors simultaneously on the same stem on the same morning. That isn't ornamental randomness. It's a precisely evolved signaling system for bees, documented across 40 million years of coevolution. Pink means nectar is available. Blue means the nectar is gone. Bees read the color and know exactly where to land, no trial and error, no wasted flight. Those silver-spotted leaves aren't decorative either. They're air-filled cells that reflect and amplify whatever weak light filters through the winter canopy, a photosynthesis adaptation for deep shade. And because Pollinaria blooms in February and March, it provides the first nectar source of the year for bees emerging after winter. While your entire garden sleeps, this plant is feeding the pollinators your whole neighborhood depends on. It self-seeds gently and orderly around the mother plant, never aggressively, never invasively. The instinct to fight, cut it completely to the ground right after flowering in April or May. It will push out a full fresh set of leaves with brighter silver spots and stay handsome all season. Best varieties: Mrs. Moon, finest silver spotting, Trevi Fountain, deepest cobalt blue in the genus. Zones 3-8 full shade only moist, rich, organic soil 8-16 in tall blooms February. April first nectar source of the year. Plant 10 Brunnera macrophylla, Siberian bugloss. The first time you see the Jack Frost variety, you'll reach out and touch it to make sure it's real. The entire upper surface of the leaf is coated in metallic silver, not pale, not silvery green, but true mirror-like silver, with the veins remaining deep green as a counterpoint. In shade, under a tree canopy, it literally glows. It picks up any fragment of filtered light and amplifies it, turning the darkest corner of the garden into a focal point. Every spring, thousands of tiny forget-me-not blue flowers float above that silver foliage, in a cloud that takes no effort from you at all. This plant won Perennial Plant of the Year in 2012 and has been among the best-selling perennials every year for 13 consecutive years since. That's not a trend, that's a permanent statement about quality. It's also far tougher than it looks. Brunnera tolerates deeper shade, drier soil, and colder winters than hostas, while still producing that metallic foliage every spring without complaint. Critical note: named varieties like Jack Frost do not come true from seed. Seedlings revert to plain green. To keep the silver effect, divide the plant in early spring. The instinct to fight, pair it with epimedium. Two completely different textures, the big metallic silver leaves of Brunnera next to the small, glossy, cut leaves of epimedium. Neither overpowers the other. Together they create a complete, permanent shade garden floor that needs nothing after planting. Best variety: looking glass for leaves that are nearly entirely silver. Zones 3-7 full shade to part shade moist, well-drained soil 12-18 in tall blooms March. May straight species self-seeds. Named varieties do not. Plant 11 Pachyra aurea golden ragwort. There is a native specialist mining bee, Andrena regularis, that collects pollen from only one plant genus throughout its entire active season. That genus is Pachyra, not a preference, not a first choice. The only option: no Pachyra in the landscape, no Andrena regularis. This is a documented ecological dependency. Every Pachyra plant in your garden is a lifeline for a species with zero alternatives. Nothing else you plant can replace it. Beyond that singular ecological role, Pachyra aurea solves the garden problem most people give up on entirely. The spot under large trees where the soil is compacted, tangled with roots, wet after rain, and dark as a cave. In spring, that entire area lights up with sheets of small golden flowers. After bloom, the dense leaf mat completely replaces purchased mulch. You stop buying it, stop spreading it, stop watching it wash away after every rain. It spreads by both seed and rhizomes, filling the space faster than any other native ground cover. The instinct to fight. The worst spot under the oldest tree, compacted soil, poor drainage, root competition, deep shade, is this plant's ideal condition. The problem you've been trying to fix is the home address this plant was born for. Look for it at native plant nurseries, not chain garden centers. Zones 3-8 sun to full shade, moist to wet soil, 12-24 in tall blooms March. May native from northeast U.S. to Texas, ecological keystone species. Plant 12 Actiracemosa, black cohosh. Imagine mid-July. A corner of the garden under old oak trees, near total shade. From a mass of deep green compound leaves, 3 to 4 feet of lush ferny foliage, white flower spikes rise up to 8 feet like tall thin candles covered in tiny pure white flowers. They glow in the shade with an almost supernatural brightness. The common name, fairy candles, requires no further explanation from anyone who has stood beside them at dusk. This plant is disappearing from eastern U.S. forests, not from climate change, not from habitat loss, but from poaching. The roots are used in herbal supplements and carry high enough market value that collectors illegally dig them from national forests. Wild populations are in measurable documented decline. Beyond that, black cohosh is the host plant for spring azure and Appalachian azure butterfly larvae, two northeastern endemics losing this host species with no viable alternative. Growing it in your garden is a direct, meaningful contribution to two species at once. The instinct to fight. Don't buy the smallest plant to save money. Small plants take 2 to 3 years to flower. Buy the largest specimen available, higher upfront cost, real payoff in 1 season instead of 3. Plant away from bedroom windows. The flowers carry a sharp scent designed to attract flies and beetles, not bees. Zones 3-8 full shade to dappled shade rich, moist, organic soil pH 5, 5-6, 5 foliage 24-36 in, flower stalks 5-8 FT blooms June, August deer resistant RHS Award of Garden Merit. Plant 13, Digitalis purpurea foxglove. Every one of those bell-shaped flowers hanging along a 6-foot stalk is the result of 50 million years of evolution. The purple, pink, white, or cream tubes hang one above the other, each angled slightly differently to catch light from every direction, and those spots inside the throat that look like decoration. They absorb ultraviolet light and display as high-contrast landing guides for bees, runway lights operating on a wavelength your eyes cannot perceive. Half of the visual event on this plant is invisible to you. In 1785, English physician William Withering documented that leaf extract from Digitalis purpurea could treat congestive heart failure, the origin of digitalis glycosides, cardiac medication still used in hospitals today. You're growing the source of one of the most important heart drugs in medical history. One mature foxglove spike produces over 1 million seeds. Plant it once and the garden plants it every year thereafter. Know this, foxglove is biennial. Year 1 is a flat ground rosette that looks like a weed. Do not pull it up. Year 2 is the 6-foot tower. The entire plant is toxic to children and pets. Plant accordingly. The instinct to fight. The year 1 rosette will test your patience. Leave it. Year 2 pays everything back. Best varieties: Camelot lavender, lavender with purple spots; Pam's Choice, white with purple spotted centers. For a true perennial, Digitalis grandiflora yellow comes back every year. Zones 4-9 part shade to morning sun, well-drained soil, 3-6 FT tall blooms June, July biennial, except D grandiflora. Over 1 million seeds per spike toxic. Keep away from children and pets. Plant 14, Sanguisorba canadensis, Canadian burnet. August through October is the dead zone in most American gardens. Summer perennials are finished. Fall bloomers haven't started. The beds look abandoned. Sanguisorba canadensis starts blooming exactly in that gap and doesn't stop until frost. Long white bottlebrush flower heads, 3 to 5 feet tall, swaying in the autumn wind with a motion no other plant can imitate because these flowers have no petals. What you're seeing are clusters of white stamens protruding from tiny tubes, creating a fluffy textured cloud that moves like nothing else in the fall garden. The ecological timing is remarkable. The monarch butterfly migration across the central U.S., particularly through Texas and the Gulf Coast in September and October, represents the final and most critical leg of a journey that consumes the butterfly's remaining fat reserves. Sanguisorba canadensis blooms exactly during this window, in exactly those regions. Every flower cluster is a refueling stop for an insect making one of the longest journeys in the animal kingdom. It self-seeds moderately each year, expanding around the mother plant without your involvement. The instinct to fight. Cut back 1/3 of the height in early July, not to tidy the plant, but to deliberately delay its bloom. This pushes the flower peak back by 2 to 3 weeks and extends the season into late October instead of finishing in early September. One precise cut gives you complete control over when your garden's fall act begins. Zones 3/8 sun to part shade, moist, rich, organic soil, 3-5 ft tall, blooms August. October, native to Canada and northeastern U.S. monarch waystation plant. Plant 15, Thalictrum meadow rue. Before we talk about what this plant looks like, consider what it doesn't have. Petals. Not a single one. What you see on Thalictrum are the stamens themselves, thousands of tiny filaments in lavender, pink, or cream forming billowing clouds above stems as thin as thread. By botanical definition, these aren't true flowers. They're everything left after you remove the flowers, and the result is more beautiful than 90% of the fully petaled species you're already growing. The name Thalictrum was recorded by the Greek physician Dioscorides in his De Materia Medica in 70 AD, the most influential botanical encyclopedia in Western history, copied and translated across dozens of languages for 2,000 years. This plant has been observed, written about, and cultivated through empires and continents, and every year it still drops seeds in fall and sends seedlings up in spring without anyone asking. Growers consistently notice something strange. The self-sown seedlings often choose better positions than deliberate planting would: wall crevices, gaps between steps, corners that needed exactly that height and transparency, but nobody planned it. The instinct to fight. Let it place itself. The self-sown plants routinely outperform the ones you positioned yourself. Best variety: Elin, 5 to 6 feet tall, lavender flowers on deep burgundy stems, extraordinary in movement, the finest in the genus. Zones 5-9 part shade to morning sun, average to moist soil, 24 in 6 ft tall, depending on variety, blooms May. August, deer resistant. All 15 of these plants have already solved the problems you're worried about: the deep shade, the dry gravel, the August dead zone. Your only job is to get one of them in the ground this June. They take it from there, seeding and returning year after year, until the garden is doing things you never planned and never paid for. That's not a garden you maintain. That's a garden that maintains itself. If this gave you even one plant worth trying, subscribe. This is exactly what I put out every week. See you in the next one.